Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I am your host, Randi-lee. On today's episode, I am going to be talking to Alex Grass. Hello, Alex. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about who Alex is.
Well, I like to think that now I'm sort of like an optimized somebody's old man and somebody's husband, and pretty good at that. And then when I'm not doing that stuff, I think of myself as an obsessive horror aficionado. Yeah, like one who came to it late in life, and they always say that like converts are the most zealous. So I think of myself as that way.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love horror so much.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I look back, I watched my fair share as a kid, probably more than most. But then again, I consumed media more than most. And that's probably a pretty big part of who I am. As a kid, I would just read so much, and it would be comics, it would be books, and it'd be weird stuff. Actually, my brother reminded me that my mom worked at a local district attorney's office, and she came into my room, and I had bought like all these occult themed books, and this was no more than 10 years after like the 1980s satanic panic.
Oh.
Yeah, and she made my dad come in and like take them all away, and also take away all of my heavy metal CDs.
Oh,
And
jeez.
yeah, and my dad was just so not convinced that it was the right thing. So he came in and like, I like with all the conviction of a low-level communist apparatchik, he's like, all right, this is the deal. Just give me, what's this one? Is this heavy metal? All right. Is your mom going to say this is satanic? All right. But
oh, geez. Yeah. Well, you got to do what mom says. Mom's the boss.
yeah, mom is the boss.
Yeah.
They look, there's an old saying that like happy wife, happy life.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm from four brothers. We say happy mother, happy brothers,
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. If mom's not doing good, nobody's doing good.
It's so true. Yep. Awesome. So let's then dive into mental health, and wherever you want to start your story, do it.
Sure. Well, yeah, I guess, most people start at the beginning. I start before the beginning. My father's father, my grandfather, is a lifelong alcoholic, one of the so-called functional alcoholics, and he was, as a consequence of that, sort of a pretty mean, pretty resentful guy. But he was also, like a lot of addicts and a lot of people with mental health issues can be, pretty damn creative and pretty resourceful. And he was a really successful businessman. And he came to it after he was sort of driven by resentment. After his father died, they lost everything, and they moved down, and they went from living in, basically upper middle class existence to living in a one-bedroom motel room, while his mother was the night manager. She slept on a love seat, and they slept on Murphy beds. Now, I say all this as a connection to mental health because even though he rose above those circumstances and really made something of himself and provided a lot of security for his family, instead of becoming happier and more contented as life went on, he became meaner and more resentful. And that was my experience too. And that was my father's experience. My father was very successful, and about a half decade ago, I was in law school and I was on scholarship and getting really great grades, and I was at the point where I could write my own ticket, but I was just miserable, and I could not get through a day without drinking. And by the end, I really couldn't get through a morning without drinking.
Mhm.
And, there's a lot of theories about this. And, certainly it's not uncommon for the creative to be afflicted in one way or another. I mean, you look at great authors and they're all pretty sick people, God bless them, but they are. Um, but there's just something off about me. And I think it's very unsettling to people, especially people who work in the arts, because when you're in the arts, you're already on the outside, and not just in the sense of like being quote unquote transgressive, but also in the sense that like you're never going to fit in because you're always going to be the guy, at parties or at family dinners, where, and especially here in the States, people ask, well, what do you do? And
Yeah.
you can't really explain it to them, because they have no frame of reference, and so you feel a tremendous sense of isolation. And even worse than that, this last thing I'll add is that if you're a writer, it is an eminently solitary enterprise. You are
Yes.
by yourself almost the entire time,
Yeah.
with the exception of interacting with editors.
Yes. Unless you edit it yourself, then you are still by yourself.
Yeah, then you're more by yourself. You're extra
Yeah.
by yourself.
Exactly. That's a really good point about people always going, "Oh, what do you do?" And it's like, well, why does what I do have to equal some type of value to you?
Right.
Like, granted, and I do it too, because I mean, it's a conversation starter. Hey, what do you do for work? And I mean, it's not to say it's an inherently bad question. However, we need to accept that some people might say, "Oh, I'm an author," and that is their actual job. Because sometimes I'll say I'm an author and a YouTube host, and they'll go, "Oh, is that all you do?"
Yeah.
Because they don't expect me to that, because they don't expect that to be the career where you're actually paying your bills. And
Right.
I'll admit, I mean, when you first start out, you're not. Right? Like you got to build an audience, but to automatically go straight to, well, what else do you do?
Right.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
I raised my kid.
Yeah.
What else
Yeah.
you want?
I go to the bathroom pretty often, you know.
Right?
Uh,
Yep.
I definitely eat food. There you go.
Yep. Yep. I pet my animals, take them
I
for a
pet,
walk.
I'm a pretty mean parallel parker. I mean,
Oh, my
man.
husband's version of parallel parking is find a different parking spot.
Yeah. Well, I'm in New York right now. There are no other parking spots.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, we have options here. There's
Right.
always options.
Yeah. I miss that sometimes. It
Yeah.
is true though, what you're saying about the question. I think, I give people the benefit of the doubt. I think a lot of the time, like most people in their day to day, like who do you know? The people, a person knows the people that they work with,
Yep.
and they spend more time with them usually than with their family. And then they know the people, if they're lucky enough to have some sort of avocation or hobby, they know those people too, you
Yeah.
know? So, I mean, like you're not really going to meet people who are, you know, illustrators or draftsmen or writers.
Exactly. Not
So,
on a regular basis, anyways.
yeah, definitely not on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it's partly it's just that their curiosity's piqued, and
Yeah.
then I think partly it's just like they get nervous. Most people are actually pretty interested once you
Yeah.
get down to talking about it.
Oh yeah. Actually, when we were at the hot tub show, the salesperson there was like, "Okay, well, what do you do for work?" Right? Because she's got to fill out the sheet because we bought a hot tub. And I'm so excited. I haven't been in it yet because it's only just getting hooked up now. And anyways, and so I was like, "Oh, my husband's a mechanic and I'm a YouTube host and an author." And she goes, "Oh, that's so cool." And then starts
Yeah,
asking me all the follow-up questions. And then I actually got her, she subscribed to my channel right then and there. So it was pretty cool, but it can be a little like, depending on who you're talking to, sometimes it's not always a good experience. It happens.
right. Yeah, it's not always a good experience. And I've definitely changed how I respond, or even how I take it in, and and even how it makes me feel it when people talk about that. Um, but I think it does, like, it speaks to the compounding pressure of
Yes.
being a writer, and then also having to wrestle with your own demons, because
Yeah.
especially if, like I was saying, you're in that solitary enterprise. you know
Yeah.
a lot of people are assailed by self-doubt, and
Hmm.
it takes some real faith, and honestly, some real fucking guts to stay in it and say, no, I know what I'm doing is right. I know it now. I'll know it 10 years from now, when
Yep.
nobody knows who I am and I haven't sold any books still,
Yep.
but I know it, you know.
Yep. Exactly. When you find what is your fit, you just know.
Yeah.
So, when did you start drinking?
Uh, you know, um, so on the Sabbath, on Saturdays at synagogues, they have a kiddush, which is basically like the ceremonial post-service luncheon, and they would lay out these little sort of, they look like the translucent hard plastic cups that go on the top of cough medicine,
Oh,
uh,
okay. Yep.
and they'd pour them with like manischewitz, which is just this. I mean, I like it because I grew up with it, but I'll be honest, most Ashkenazi Jewish food is god awful because it's Eastern European peasant food. So like there would be like
Okay.
white fish out and sardines, and then this syrupy sweet wine called manischewitz. And I remember like going up, and I would take one, and like I felt all warm and weird,
Ah.
and I don't even know whether or not it felt good or not, but I know that it created some sort of change. And so I went up and I took another, and then I took another. And so, um, so I guess my first drink was when I was, probably around like 10, 11 years old. Um, but the precipitating um, characteristics existed, like I guess, anxiety and anger. My old man, he's a great guy, and he's in recovery too. He's sort of served as a model to a lot of the other boys in the family. We're four boys, and all of us have this problem. Um, but he came in about 8 years ago, and he really changed not just his life, but fundamentally who he is.
Mm.
And that's the difficulty, I think, not just with alcoholism, but with mental illness. It's so scary whether or not you can name the fear and actually recognize it. It's so scary to do what needs to be done, and what needs to be done is you have to completely change your life.
Yeah.
You know,
So, how old were you when you grabbed the next
I,
drink there?
the next drink, so 10 and 11 to start, and then I would say I was drinking pretty regularly, somewhere around 14. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Um, there's a really awful neighborhood outside the Philadelphia airport called Chester, and we would go to like the one liquor store that was basically in the bombed out ass end of hell, so like right by the train tracks in Chester, and the guy there didn't card, so
Uh,
we would go there and buy 40s, and I realized I did something that other people didn't do. Like I would go back later by myself and buy, and then just like sit at home and drink, which
yeah.
is a pretty unusual thing for like a young teenager to do.
Yeah. Okay. So, when did you notice that it was a problem?
Early, early. There's romance at first, of course,
Yeah.
especially when other family members are drinking. My grandfather liked to like to pound it down.
Yeah. And I think that's a really key point to this is that it's a systemic intergenerational issue. If it is the way that you grew up, it's your normal, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I've said this on so many episodes that normal is not always a good thing. Normal is what you see on a regular basis, and that is
Yeah.
what is normal to you. And everybody has their own normal.
Right.
And so if you're seeing that on a regular basis, then why wouldn't you drink too?
Exactly. I mean, there is no normal. There's regular, right?
Yes, exactly.
There's everybody has a mode of regularity,
Yeah,
and they inherit it and they form it based on the relationships they have in the world around them.
exactly.
And yeah, and my world was filled with like mean, nasty, but also at the same time incredibly funny, um, deeply loving alcoholics,
Yeah.
and it's the ups and downs that are so jarring. Even before I was drinking, it's like hot and cold. One second they could be, looking to bake you a pie, and the next second they want to tear your guts out and put it in the pie.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. My and I've shared this on the show, but I'll let you know. So my ex-stepfather, when I was a teenager, he was an alcoholic. And so yeah, one second we'd be just having a conversation, especially like watching movies. Movies really triggered him. So we'd be watching whatever movie it was. And me and my mom love horror. And we'd watch, and all of a sudden he'd be enjoying it and going along, and then all of a sudden be like, well, that's not real life. And like
Yeah.
go off on this whole rant and yelling and screaming. My mom would rush me upstairs to my bedroom, and it's like, obviously it's not real life. Most times if somebody gets shot 10 times in the head, they're dead. That, Freddy Krueger won't die. He's in your dreams. Like, I don't know what you're expecting right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But there would be this switch that flipped, and all of a sudden our nice evening was just ruined for who knows what reason.
Yeah.
Alcohol was the reason.
Yeah, alcohol, exactly. It numbs you, but it takes down all the defense posts and all the locks and all the security gates, and you find yourself doing things that you never thought you would do, and it is cyclical, because the day after you feel this incredible shame, just incredible shame, and whether or not you say it out loud, whether or not you're aware of it at a conscious or unconscious level,
Yeah.
that you're trapped,
Yeah.
like you need help, and this cycle will repeat. So that's when the shame brings despair.
Yeah. And I think that's why I got such a hefty allowance as a teenager, was simply because he was trying to make up for all of the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how, that's so typical. I mean, especially with alcoholics, it's like they become the cool person, because then you're like, as a kid, you look at it, you're like, well, I mean, it's not that fucking bad, like, dude, just give me $200, I mean, gee.
Yeah, it can't possibly be that bad, but
yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Now that being said, I know you got a question loaded up, but that being said, I think that a big problem these days, and I don't know if it's cultural or it's always been this way, or it's like endemic to our cultural moment, but people get hung up on what's happened to them, and it hurts them. Holding on to that hurts them more than it. I mean, it doesn't even hurt the people that they're bearing a grudge against.
Yeah. Well, and it totally goes along with this point. So my ex-stepfather, he's dead now. And so if I constantly relive that trauma of living in the house with him, it really isn't hurting him. Like, he literally cannot hear me saying this stuff anymore. So why should I hold on to that pain? And I mean, it doesn't have to be if the person has passed. It could just be that, the person's still around, but ultimately it's not hurting them at all. They don't care. They're living their life while you're sitting here in your pain.
They're living their life, or in the case of your ex-stepfather, they're unliving their death, whatever the case may
I
be.
like that. Yep.
Yeah, it's, and I think a part of it, it's because people have this view of like, I don't know if it's win lose, but tit for tat. Like if someone
Yeah.
slights you, you have to slight them back,
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the thing that I realized, and it did take me a while to get here, I have,
Oh yeah. Nobody is saying this is an easy concept to grasp
yeah,
or an easy thing to do.
yeah,
It's easy to
yeah.
talk about.
It's easy
Not
to talk.
easy.
It's easy to talk about. It's amazing how many how many addicts and alcoholics I've met who have like incredible self-knowledge, which is rare enough, but they have incredible self-knowledge and it has helped them nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. It doesn't matter because you have to do, and you
Yeah.
have to do things that are uncomfortable,
Yes. Yeah.
That's the only way change happens.
Exactly. So when did you try to get sober?
Oh, a bunch of times. So most successfully, I guess, would be almost 5 years ago.
Okay.
That's I have 4 years and more than 11 months. I'm coming up on 5 years.
Woo!
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty psyched. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
It was both a century ago and last weekend in my mind. You
Yeah.
know? But at different times I tried because I I understood clear enough that the stuff that I felt and the things that I did were, you know, things that could probably, if I couldn't eliminate the bad behavior, I could start to work on it if I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
And I used to do just like really insane stuff that there was no reason for it. About 13 years ago, this is a story that paints me in a pretty unfavorable light, but it just tells you everything.
Yeah.
I was engaged to a woman, and she would go away on business trips, and then I started dating a girl, and she would come over to the apartment we lived in together, and she'd see the pictures on the wall, and she's like, "Who's this?" And I'd be like, "That's my roommate," you know. And I had no thought about exactly how sick a person is, not just in the sense of like people say sick as in malice, but like sick as in mentally ill. It
Yes.
was both of them. To just throw out a lie like that, like you were reading off a grocery list, and and you know, I would use people, and I had developed sort of like a nihilistic view of the world too. So you become, when you're alcoholic and an addict, you become um, not just cynical, but you have to build your cynicism up into a superpower of
Yeah.
of uh, of condescension, so that you can guard yourself against the consequences of your own behavior. Because if you weren't nihilistic and cynical, then you would realize when you're doing all this crazy shit, like, wow, I'm a bad guy. You know,
Yeah.
these are bad things. I do more bad things than good things. I'm a bad person. And it takes a lot to work on that. And I wasn't ready. So I tried, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 different times.
Yeah. And that's another super good point is that it often takes people multiple tries. So don't feel like you're a failure if you've tried already and it didn't stick the first time, the second time, the third time. Just keep trying. Like,
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's, and not only is that right, it doesn't matter if it's alcoholism or if it's mental illness. It could be purely genetic. You could be you just got a bum deal. You got, the ass end of the stick. The fates rolled the dice, and it came up snake eyes for you. And
exactly.
there's nothing you can do about that. But
Yeah.
that
But
my brother, you know, we talk about this all the time because he and I are most similar in terms of like things we've dealt with. So
okay.
not just alcoholism, but like violence and like very risky risky behavior.
Yeah.
I'll let people's imaginations go where they will, and whatever you're
Oh dear.
whatever you're imagining, it's probably right, you know.
Oh dear.
But he tried several times, and it is a struggle. For instance, if you're bipolar, to get in a routine where you make yourself take your medicine.
Yes.
So I guess if I would said anything to anybody, it's just keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
If you have one day that's better than your typical day, then you're winning.
Yeah. And that actually brings us right into the next questions. What did you do? How did you finally get it to stick? What coping strategies? I know that was like 4 questions, but
no, it's okay. I mean, they're all wrapped up. They're all wrapped together.
Nice little package.
Yeah. I mean, if someone asks a question like, what'd you do? I attended meetings, and then no further explanation. It's not good enough. So, this is one of those things where one question is many questions.
Exactly. That's why I kind of threw them all together.
Yeah. Well, I remember the moment it happened. I went down to rehab in Naples, Florida, and like for the first, withdrawal was pretty awful in the beginning, and then the first couple of weeks, I just did not want to be there, and I was, like a petulant child, like really like a baby, and I was 32 years old when I went, and I would just start fights, and I would be a nuisance and make a spectacle of myself. And I don't know, my roommate is this guy named Todd, and he.
So actual roommate, not your roommate?
No, my roommate.
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, no, my real true rehab roommate, Todd, and he said, we sat down together, and he's like, "What's going on?" And I started bitching about other people, and he's like, "No, like really, what's going on? Like for once,
yeah,
what's going on?" I'm like, I'm scared shitless that I've ruined everything, and like my wife might leave me.
Honesty.
Yeah, and I won't see my kid, and I'm embarrassed, and I feel stupid, and I feel weak, And for me, that was my moment. And after that, I really, a lot of people can find a lot of different ways to get well. For me, I know this is very polarizing. For me, like AA worked.
Yeah.
And
some people love it and some people hate it. Like there's not a lot of in between. You love it or you hate it. But you know what? It works for some people. So it's good.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is with something like this, the odds are so low, the odds are at best 1 in 20 for long-term sobriety. And they're even lower for addicts. Most of the meetings I went to down in Florida were NA, Narcotics Anonymous meetings.
Wow.
And I think it's also, I was lucky enough to find a community very early, not just in rehab, but in the local meetings, because you were allowed to go off campus to go to meetings.
Oh, okay.
But more than anything, I gave up. I just said, you know what? I had such a focus on like semantics and words and keeping tally and who was right and who said what and what the, the strong response would be or whatever. But at the end of the day, what actions would I be happy with seeing from other people? Well, I'd be happy if my wife stayed with me, and I'd be happy if my son lived in the same house as me, and my daughter.
How long had you been married for at that time?
Let me see. Couple years.
Okay.
3 years. 3 years probably.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd been together even longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just looked at what I wanted to achieve, and I decided, I'm going to do the things that people suggest from the people who have had certain things work for them. Like I'll always remember what my counselor said, because I was like sitting there, I'm angry and withdrawal, and I'm pissed off at someone. I'm like, this person does this person does that, like fucking, and they said this and that was wrong, and I know this, he's like, yeah, but you know what? That person's my counselor. His name's John. So that person's been sober for 10 years, and you can't get 10 days. And
Mm.
I heard that, and I was like, oh man.
Yep. Yeah. And that's such a good point, is to focus on yourself. You can't control what other people are saying or doing. You can only control your reactions to them. And I have been saying that to my kid since he was like 5.
Right.
Because kids do this all the time. And actually, I just had this conversation the other day, because I coach kickboxing, and one of the kids, I was talking to him, saying, hey, look, you gotta keep your guards up, you gotta do this, just giving him some pointers, right? And then his brother, and it's always siblings are the worst.
Oh,
his brother's there, and he goes, yeah, he's always putting them down. And I'm like, and I look at him, I go, you worry about you, and
exactly.
not what your brother is doing.
Exactly.
Like, so I don't want to see you stopping while I'm talking to him, because this is not your conversation, right? Like, worry about yourself. Exactly. And not what everybody else is doing, because you can't control everybody else.
And people are so, like, there's such an inclination to do that. But, the things that pop up again and again in AA, for instance, they're slogans, but some things that come off as cliche and as trite, they sound cliche and trite because they've happened so much, and they end up, being born of the truth.
Well, that's just it. Like, just because it's something that has been repeated over and over and it's a cliche, well, where did it come from?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I can't tell you how many times, working on my car, I've thought lefty loosey, righty tighty, but it's not wrong.
Oh yeah, totally do that. Or when you hold up your hands to be like, which one's left, which one's right?
Yes. Yep. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But you gotta worry about yourself first. There's nobody, and I have yet to meet, on earth in my time, the Christ figure, the person who's without sin.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do to fix yourself before you even need to worry about other people,
Exactly. And I know that was something that really helped me when I was going through therapy, is realizing I cannot change the other people's opinions of me. I cannot change what they're going to say to me. All I can do is what works for me.
Right.
So that's so important. And my brother died earlier this year in May from his addiction. And my mom, her way of dealing with it was blaming everybody else.
Right.
Oh, if Brandon would have been bullied when he was a kid, because we had different dads, me and my brother. If your dad wasn't so mean to him, he would have been different. If his dad wasn't so bad, he would have been different. If he met the right friends, it would have been different. If he would have met the right girl, it would have been different. And I just looked at my mom, and we can't talk about his death together because she always goes down the path of what everyone else did to him,
right,
instead of how he dealt with the situations himself and what choices he made. And I just look at her, I go, nobody told him to stick a needle in his arm. Nobody told him to smoke whatever it was. Like, he made those decisions. Am I sad? Yeah. I cried a heck of a lot. When I was given the eulogy, I had to my nose a whole bunch. I had a whole big box of tissues there. But ultimately, the way that I grieved over it and the way that I came to terms with it is, again, he made his decisions. They weren't good decisions, but they were his decisions. There's nothing I could have done to have changed that, because that first initial shock was, well, could I have said something that would have made a difference? The last time I talked to him, we kind of got in an argument because I said, no, I don't want to see you because, well, you're on drugs. But is there something else I could have done? Should I have seen him more? And so you go through all of these thoughts, and ultimately it comes down to those are his decisions.
Right.
And that's the same with people who are trying to get sober. That's the same with people who, like the family members trying to help those people. It's their decision.
Right. Right. That's the great illusion, control.
Yeah.
That's the great illusion.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's less hurtful, and I can't imagine what it's like as a mother. I can't. But
Yeah.
it's less hurtful to say this is a cruel world and look what the cruel world did to the
Yeah.
person I love, than to because the implication of the other side, right? The other
Yeah.
side being this person chose to do these things. The implication is, well,
Yeah.
perhaps something from what I taught him or from the world he grew up in that I was a part of did it. And
Yeah. Oh yeah. My mom had a lot of self-blame. I think she still does. Like I said, we don't talk about it much deeply anyways. Like we'll talk about him, but we won't talk about the actual death part of it. But I know that she was having a lot of self-blame at the beginning because, she was a single mom and what could she have done? And maybe she should have put him in a different school or done this and that. And
yeah, well, it's reactive thinking,
yeah,
something happened in your mom's life, like something happened in your life and in my life, and people, they want to react and they want to fix. And
yes, we're fixers.
we're fixers. Yeah, exactly. Human beings are amazing. We're ingenious. If you look around any room that you're in, anyone who's listening to this, you can see things that are just the accumulation of thousands of years of knowledge and expertise and genius and hard work.
The fact that you're watching this on a computer right now, like
Exactly.
we're listening to it. Like,
exactly. I'm talking through a microphone. This is plugged into a computer. That's plugged into a power outlet. So right there, you already have Marconi and Edison or Tesla, if you like. I don't really buy the Tesla maniacs. I like him as a romantic character, but
So what is some of the really good coping strategies that you have found along the way?
Oh, for me, hard rules like 10 commandments 3,000 years ago in Judea, Samaria, hard rules, like
Okay.
I set up a rule early between me and my wife, because I would call her every night from rehab. And anytime it was later in the night, I was just a miserable piece of shit, So we set a hard rule. After 8 p.m., no phone calls, no matter what. And it's just sort of like, it's about setting rules where you know yourself. Because I knew that at the time, I just didn't have it in myself, even though I'd already been such a piece of shit. I didn't have it in myself to not be a piece of shit further to her on the phone.
Yeah.
And then regularity really helps. I don't know if that's coping as much as it is, like having a plan, but if you do something that you can keep doing. So for me, I find that like addicts, they need to channel it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it became weightlifting.
Okay.
And for other people, it might become art, or it might, because usually people who are, addicts, alcoholics, mentally ill people, I find they're pretty remarkable, pretty special people,
Yeah.
And the things that they can do, they're not even aware how much they can do. And they're so down on themselves too, So, but
there's some crazy stuff going on in my living room right now. Sorry, there is just like a lot of noise coming down.
That's okay. My son, I call him Jerome Bettis, like the running back from the Steelers.
Yeah.
Because we live like in an old solid house. There's steel beams and plaster, and he can still rock the place.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just like,
no, it's
what
okay.
is happening?
I saw the camera vibrate. They're rocking the foundations up there.
They are. Jeez. So yeah, weightlifting and channeling your energy somewhere. That is a very popular answer, is exercise in general. Um,
But I think it has to be something that you really like too, so it's
yeah.
sustainable. So the reason weightlifting worked for me is because like I remember going to the gym as a kid with my dad, and there was this gym where they would have the world's strongest man on it in the background, you know? And
Yeah.
I love that. So I don't do just the regular weightlifting. I do like you know, it's like almost exclusively like barbells and dumbbells and yokes and sandbags and Atlas stones.
Okay. Yeah.
And so for me, it's incredibly fun. It's like play for an adult, you know.
Yeah.
And people lose track of that. I think, you know, it's so rare that adults do something where it's just, you know, there's just joy in it.
Yes.
There always has to be a result. There's nothing where it's just like, God, this is so great.
I
You know?
know. Like whoever decided that when you became an adult, you don't get to have fun anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't get to go play at the park anymore. You don't get to get a toy with your meal anymore when you go to fast food. Like I just right, the fun is completely taken out. And there is actually, I want to go there as now that COVID is slowly kind of dissipating. There's this new like indoor playground for adults in Toronto.
That's
Looks like so much
amazing.
fun.
It's amazing. And the best part would be like your husband's like, okay, you ready to go home? No, no,
Exactly.
I'm staying.
I'm on
You
this
can't.
giant tricycle right now. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And the
one day I will be going.
you gotta be like the older, you know, like in the movie Hook, the older Peter, Robin
Yes.
Williams, you know, comes back, and you gotta like remember how you dreamed as a kid of being an adult, so you would be free to do more kid things.
Exactly. Like I didn't plan to become an adult, so I had to do adult things. I
Yeah,
never agreed to that. Mm-mm.
never, never.
No,
I dreamed of eating a box of cookies whenever I wanted.
exactly. So this is totally off topic, but hilarious. So um grandson's birthday last week, so we had cake and ice cream. So there was still cake and ice cream left. And it was only the kind that my husband eats because I can't eat his kind, and it's just a whole lot of food issues. Anyways, so he says to me last night, we're walking the dogs, he goes, so the other day, I got the plate out and bowl and I cut myself a slice of cake and had some ice cream. Then I realized that nobody else is eating this cake and ice cream. So then I just sat there and ate it out the container. That is called being an adult, when you can just eat it right out the container.
Yeah, it's that, you know. Hey, dare to dream such wonderful deeds. You know,
Exactly. So what would you tell somebody who is struggling right now with their own addiction and they're like, okay, I know that it needs to change, but what should I be doing as my first step?
find help, get other people, get other people, uh, and it'll be hard even with other people, and it'll be hard even though those people are willing to help you and will probably go to great lengths to help you, even while you react poorly to them. Um, I I believe that people who've struggled with mental illness and gotten over it um, have an incredible understanding and have wide open, warm, welcoming hearts, especially in regards to people who are struggling and not finding a solution. And you have to go out and you have to find those people, and you have to ignore that part of you that's telling you to like take back control, or that part of you that nitpicks and sees one thing wrong and say, well, I'm going to throw it all away, you know. So for me, when I was down in Florida, you know, it was just the nature of where I was. It was in South Florida. You know, all the AA meetings were at Protestant churches, you know,
Okay.
and so there was like a lot of, you know, I mean, like, God, in the abstract, it didn't even bother me, but I think I was just looking for something to be angry about at the time, you
Yeah.
know, and I was just mad or like, uh, that, you know, like people would talk about their church stuff while they were there, but it was in a church. I mean, that was their community.
Yeah.
And it was like so fucking self-indulgent of me to, yeah, because it's like, okay, like someone's basically inviting you into their home, into the place they live, into their life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you're not exactly like a positive presence when you first come in, you know, you're not
That's
helping.
true.
Yeah, you're not helping
Yeah.
it. So when you get feelings like that, you know, just like talk to someone you trust and someone who can tell you the truth, because not everyone can tell you the truth. Everyone has something that they can hear things from, and people they just can't hear it from, you know?
It's so true.
And, you know, like my brothers, at least two of them, can't hear shit from my dad, you know, because they got hangups about him, right? But they can hear shit from me. So
Yeah.
whoever you are out there, you got to find the person that you trust enough that even when they tell you the shit you don't want to hear, you know, you have faith that what they're telling you is something that they're saying because they do want you to get better. You need
Yeah.
you need support.
Yeah. That is such a great answer. And I don't think I would be where I am today without doing exactly what you just said. Finding
Yeah.
support, finding people, and yeah, making those connections with others who have been through the same sort of thing.
Right. Right.
And
It's
that's
people remember a moment usually as like the moments they changed, not always, but often.
mhm.
You know, like for instance, you had a revolution in thought about your relationship with your stepdad, right?
Yeah,
While you're working it out in therapy, right? So
exactly.
I had a revelation while I'm sitting there with my roommate from rehab. You know,
Yeah.
no one has a story where it's like, well, I was tortured my entire life, and then all of a sudden, randomly, I'm sitting there, and I said, you know what, this doesn't make sense, and then all my behavior changed. You know,
Yeah, really. If only it was that easy.
yeah, that would be like that never happens. You know,
No, no.
you got to get other people.
Yeah. And so, what have you written? And okay, so before you answer, I have to say that, and we were talking about this before we hit record. So, Alex has sent me a couple of his books, and I haven't read them yet, but looking at the covers of them, they are so cool looking. Like, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it, but you look at it, it's like this, the one, especially this one, it was like this creepy guy, but like a bright colored background. So it's like the contrast is so cool on it that, yeah, it's very eye catching. So,
Yeah, well, I highly suggest anyone likes pop surreal art. The guy who does my covers, his name's Chris Bodley. He's out in Ogden, Utah. I think he's an animation professor, but he also has a graphic novel. He is just so great. Like everything he does, I remember going on his website and seeing the art, and I'm like, this is it. This is the guy. You know,
yeah, it's so cool.
I think we were talking about earlier. I forget in regards to what, but like when you know. Like
Yes.
when I saw his art, I'm like, there's nobody else. You
Yeah.
know, I'm not even interested. It's like you know, it's almost like artists like you develop a crush on another artist's work. You know,
Yeah,
you,
exactly.
you get obsessive. You know, you're like infatuated with it. Like
Yeah.
it's so perfect.
Yeah.
Um, but that all the books have some like I I write what I know, you know, and even when it's fantastic, supernatural, the cast of characters are all rooted in my life and in people that I've known, and so there's a shitload of alcoholics in there, and
Good
so
to know.
even though in Black or Lantern, like the main antagonist is a guy named Papa Maravicos, and he's using this tome called the Book of Deeds to do basically black magic, right? And he is degrading and he's rotting in a literal sense, and he's rotting away and becoming insane and mutating and transforming. And it's analogous to like heavy boozing. It's just like what's happening, but you're a willing participant. And not only are you participating, but you're hastening it.
Okay.
And then the son Eddie is sort of like Papa Maravicos's cash cow, because Eddie, as a result of trauma, develops second sight, so he can, to a limited extent, he can prophesy. He knows what's coming down the pike. He can read minds, and he even starts to develop, some telekinetic abilities. But he's gone the other way. Alcohol for him doesn't turn him into something else. It blunts all of the something else's around him, you know. And I think, some of the great themes in literature are the things we do to avoid dealing with the life we have. And,
Okay.
and I got that especially from, I think really the master of that is Dostoevsky, and that guy had a terrible, incredible success, but also a terrible life.
Yeah.
His father was brutally murdered by serfs on their country estate, and then he had epilepsy, which in Russia in the, turn of the century was basically viewed as like you were possessed by a demon,
Yeah.
And I think that it's just incredibly compelling because nowhere else, or like very, very rarely in other afflictions, do you see such clear Jekyll and Hyde behavior.
Yes, it's so true.
And like I imagine that your mom feels the way she does about her son because she has all these memories of her son being like her baby boy and acting that way, right?
Yeah.
But our moms don't want to know the things that we've done when we've gone out in the world with our disease,
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I'll tell my mom, like, so she's read some of my books now, and most of them are all about depression. And she's reading them. She goes, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, because I didn't tell you. It's really that simple. I didn't share that with you.
Yeah, Ma, there's a pretty good fucking reason why I never told you that, you know?
Exactly. So it's like, sorry, this is how you get to find out. Haha. Oh, yeah. So where can people get a hold of your books?
Amazon rules all. Obey Amazon.
I know, but I mean, they make it so easy to self-publish, and right, like, come on.
They're a pretty great platform. The thing is like, you can say that, okay, it's like it's this huge conglomerate and they control everything, but there's also like fundamentally what they're doing, Amazon, all these other platforms, is they're giving like a home base for creators, and it's sort of like you're driving I hate to say this, but it just came to mind. You're driving the money changers out of the temple, you really are. You're letting the direct line from the creator to the consumer. I don't mean consumer like materialist consumer, but like as in art in whatever medium. You're drawing a direct line, and you're also allowing for, I think, something that's, if not pure, although I do think it's pure, art that's a whole lot more honest because you're getting it right from the artist.
Yes, exactly. Because once you go through like a bigger publisher with their specifications of what they want, then sometimes you lose what you want in there. And sorry, but this is my piece of work, so I want it my way.
Right. Exactly. And it's sort of, books are long form. It's not like a movie. It's not like, I can buy into a producer saying, for time, we have to cut a horror movie down to no more than an hour and 35, an hour and 40 minutes,
Exactly. Yeah.
But like, people who buy horror books aren't they're in it. They're fanatics, and
when they're too short, then it's like, really, that's all there is.
Yeah, I know.
So let our imaginations run wild.
Exactly.
All right, and where can people follow you?
I'm on Goodreads.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah. I got.
We gotta work on this.
I know. I'm
Come on.
constantly getting flagged for this.
Yeah, you
That's
gotta
it.
work on this.
Yeah.
I got a person for you. She can help you out with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you after.
Okay.
All right. So again, thank you so very much for coming on the show and sharing. Go and check out the link in the description down below, because that's where the link is to go and get your hands on Alex's books. And I guess just Goodreads.
Just Goodreads. Well, I'll say this. If you message me on Goodreads, I'm real good about responding, and I have been known to send free books.
I mean, I already got mine, but like, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Again, thank you, Alex, for being on the show. I had such a great time talking to you. We kept chatting afterwards because I'm a chatterbox sometimes. Make sure that you pick up his books down in the description below. Hit that link up. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button here at the channel. Share these episodes out. We have an important message that's got to get out there. Remember, we do have a merch store where 10% of the proceeds goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association, as well as a Patreon page where you can support the channel. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.